Man, what is happening, my YouTube family? Of course, it is your boy B New. I'm coming at you on this happy hump day Wednesday, and I'm afraid I'm not whipping today. I am stationary, but I had to go ahead and finish up this list because I've been promising y'all, and I feel bad because I've been letting you down. So I want to finish the top 30 list that I did. As you all know, I did throw a couple of ties in there, so I went back and counted, and it was technically a top 33, which works good for me because 33 is a good number in the universe, but that's something on another day we could talk about. But positive vibrations to everybody as usual before I get into this. But just to do a quick recap, I had a list right here with me. So I just want to get a recap to what brought us here today to number 8. So, of course, we had Ray Allen, then Paul Pierce, Reggie Miller, Allen Iverson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, David Robertson, D. Wade, Charles Barkley, Dominique Wilkins, Moses Malone, the Big Ticket, John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Jason Kidd, Scottie Pippen, Jerry West, Hakeem Olajuwon, the Dream, of course, Steph Curry, who been going ham as of late and going to be moving up on this list, as we all know. But remember, this list is as of right now. So before you get all in the comments and get in your feelings, Steph Curry still has a little bit more work to do before he moves up. Karl Malone, Bill Russell, Timmy D, Kevin Durant, Larry Bird, and that's where I stopped, was Larry Bird. So let's go ahead, without further ado, get into number 8 on the list. Number 8 on the list is none other than the Big O. Just in case you don't know who that is Oscar Robertson. For you youngsters out there who don't know, of course, he was before my time as well, but my dad used to tell me hella stories about how great Oscar Robertson was. And if you even ask Jerry West will say that even though he's the logo and was considered the best point guard in his day, he said he was nothing compared to Oscar Robertson. And Oscar Robertson did agree with him. You should have saw the panel. It was a great interview. Try to check that out if you can ever dig it up. But Oscar Robertson, for his career, averaged 26 points a game, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds. So you're talking about somebody that's going to go out there and give you 26 points a game, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds. Well, 10 assists because it was 9.5. He was a 13-time All-Star. He shot 49%. For a guard to shoot 49% for their career, right at 50%, is amazing. He was 11-time All-NBA first team. I mean, out of the 12 or 13 years that he played, basically, I think 14 years that he played, he was 12 times All-NBA. So except for his last couple of years with Milwaukee, which, you know, due to injuries and things like that and age, he was slowing down. But to shoot 49%, you know, as a guard, I mean, his first 8 years in the league, he was first team. So that lets you know, even as a rookie, he came in making first team. He averaged a triple-double for 5 seasons. That was something that was unheard of. He was the first player to do it. And even though Russell Westbrook has done it recently, I won't say Oscar's was more impactful because he played for a team that just wasn't as good either. And we all know that while he played for Cincinnati, they did some great things into the playoffs, but never did he win a championship until he was, at the end of his career, traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, once he played for the Bucks, as soon as he got there, what happened? Of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there, and they won a championship just like that. And Oscar was kind of long in the tooth then. He was older, but at the end of the day, he is the one who led Kareem to that championship. And as you can see, they did pretty okay the next couple of years in 72 and 73. But Oscar was at the end of the rope then, and he went ahead and hung him up. And as soon as Oscar left, what happened? Even with Kareem, they fell to last place in their division in the conference. So that shows you how valuable of a player Oscar Robertson was. He did only win the one championship with Kareem. However, you know, he played for Cincinnati. He didn't play for a lot of great teams. And that's what I keep trying to tell people. You cannot define a player by championships completely. Now, if you would have took Oscar Robertson and put him on that Lakers team with Jerry West, then I doubt the Lakers would have fell short all those times that they did with Jerry West, who only won one championship with the Lakers. And if that was Oscar Robertson, then I dare say that there would have been more championships, because that's the type of player he was. He was a pinpoint passer. He could dribble with both the left and the right hand. He could shoot. He was a master at the mid-range game. He could see over the defense. He was able to get the ball to players at all times in the right positions, whether he was feeding the post or whether it was on a fast break. Oscar Robertson had a very high IQ, not only on the basketball realm, but we all know what he did for the players, because he is the one who brought forth free agency in the NBA, put his career on the line as an arbitrator and the head of the Players Association. And if you haven't seen the footage, go back and watch Shut Up and Dribble. If I'm not mistaken, they do have some footage of that, and it'll show you. It will show you the fight that he fought against Congress and everybody else who was trying to say that if you were drafted to a team, you had to stay with that team. So Oscar Robertson is the one who brought about free agency. And if you really think about it, that is what led Kareem to be able to go to the Lakers. But that's a story for a whole nother day. So Oscar Robertson, that's who I have coming in at 8th all time. He's the big O. Like I said, averaging a triple-double. That means he was involved in all facets of the game. So then I have, I guess you could say, tied for number 8 on this list, technically, or you can say 7th, however you want to look at it, but I have them really tied because I think they're basically right there as players, and that is none other than the great Dr. J, who really doesn't make the top 10 on a lot of people's lists, and that's very upsetting to me, because if you knew who Dr. J was and what he did for the game of basketball and how great of a player he was, then you would understand that he is definitely a GOAT. He was an 8-time all-time scoring champion, leading, if you include the ABA as well. And in this time, I think he had 5 seasons with the ABA, with the Virginia Squires. And in those 5 short seasons in the ABA, he won two championships, 3 MVPs, led the ABA in scoring for 4 years. He is who legitimized the ABA. And you can't knock him for being in the ABA, because Dr. J was from the hood. He needed to make some money, and they weren't letting high school players who had only been out of high school for 2 or 3 years come into the league. But yet they filed a grievance, and he was able to play, and the rest was history. But of course, we know the ABA was struggling for funds, and they were going under. So actually, the Milwaukee Bucks actually drafted Dr. J, and he would have been playing with Oscar Robertson and Kareem. And who knows, man, it would have been crazy. But it was not to be, because Atlanta Hawks, he had signed a deal with the Atlanta Hawks before that, trying to go to the NBA, because he felt he got cheated out of a deal with the Squires, because his agent was working for them behind the scenes and gave him a raw deal. So with all that being said, long story short, he was traded to the Nets, who eventually made it to the NBA. He went to the Nets and won the ABA championship. So just like LeBron, he switched teams, won another ship with the ABA. And then the Nets, what happened? The Nets got absorbed into the NBA. They were struggling. They had to sell Dr. J just to stay in the NBA, because the New York Knicks was suing them for saying, look, you are in our television market, and since you are in our television market, we are suing you for millions of dollars. They didn't really have the money to pay. So basically, they sold Dr. J to the Philadelphia 76ers in order to do that. And we all know what Dr. J means to the 76ers. As soon as he got there, he was successful. Now, a lot of smooth brain people might look at his average and say, well, his averages went down from the ABA to the NBA. He couldn't score as good. No, the ABA was just as good. Trust me, if not better. They had great players in the ABA as well. It was just that he had to share the ball with other players that were on the team. Mo Cheeks, you had Doug Collins, just different great players who he had to spread the ball around with. And he took a step back and did that because he wanted to be successful. And they went to several Eastern Conference finals, and they actually went to the finals. I want to say Dr. J's 2nd or 3rd year there in '78. And Dr. J, they lost to Portland in the finals. They were up 2-0, but we all know about the famous brawl. If you don't know about that, with Bill Walton, the big fight that sparked Portland to come back and win 4 in a row. But Dr. J still didn't just have that squad. He was still missing a piece, because we all know it took a dynamic duo, but he was putting them on his back. Going against Larry Bird, if you go back and look at the 1981 Eastern Conference Finals, man, that was a heartbreaker when Larry Bird came into the league. The battles that Dr. J and Larry Bird were having, it was phenomenal. That probably could have been another championship. That was the year that the Celtics won in '81, where game 6, they were up 3-2, but then they lost game 6 by 1 point. Then they lost game 7 by 2 points in a heartbreaker. But those were the real battles of the early days with Dr. J and Larry Bird. But like I said, Dr. J was 6'7". He could do all the magical things. Like, he was the first one to have a shoe deal. It wasn't Jordan, it was Dr. J. He was the one who was dunking from the free throw line. He the one who made it cool. He was the first one to start being in movies and making the NBA just a place for athletes to become larger than life. So he won the championship there, but, he needed one for the NBA. And of course, we all know Moses Malone came along in the 82-83 season, and Dr. J finally won that championship because he had that missing piece that he needed. And Moses Malone, of course, was ranked in my list as well. But to me, Dr. J is a far more valuable player because of what he did on the basketball court. And Moses Malone, I'm not taking anything away from him, but Moses Malone is the one who said 4, 4, 4. Just like Wendy's, the 4 for 4. And that's what they did, except for one game. They lost one game, kind of like the Lakers did, I want to say, in 2000. But at the end of the day, Dr. J has 2 championships with the ABA. If you look at it, he's 8th all-time in scoring. I know you can sit up there and say if you take away, the ABA, then he falls all the way down to like 20th or even 25th or something like that. Just counting the NBA scoring. But that's amazing, too, because you're taking away 5 seasons worth of scoring. Do you understand what I'm saying? So Dr. J, to me, he is right there on that list as far as being in my top 10. So now that leads me to number 7. Number 7 on my list is none other than the great Shaquille O'Neal. A lot of you might be upset that I had Shaq over Hakeem the Dream. But if you go back, if you really want to know why I have him over Hakeem, go back and look at the last video in which when I did my countdown and had Hakeem at 12. And then you'll understand why. And I know Hakeem beat Shaq head-to-head in the finals and swept Shaq, but that was a team effort. If you look at the numbers, Shaq held his own, and it was Shaq's only 3rd year in the NBA. Hakeem was the wily veteran who had the moves and should have dominated Shaq in the way that his team did. So at the end of the day, you can't just put that all on Shaquille O'Neal, Penny and everybody else. But Houston just had a great run at the time. But got to give it up to Shaq. Shaq gave you 24 points a game, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists a game throughout his career. If you go back and look at if you just go back and look at him in his Orlando and his Laker days, Shaq was giving you like 20, 28, and 13. You understand what I'm saying? He's going out and giving you damn near 30 a game for those eight years that he was with Orlando, and the 8 years that he was with, the 3 years he was with Orlando and the years that he was with LA. If you count all those years together, Shaq is a 14-time All-Star. Of course, an MVP, a 3-time Finals MVP. Of course, him and Kobe, we all know how great they were and what they did as far as winning those championships. And then let's not forget what a major force Shaq was, even when he left and went to Miami, because a lot of people think that he was not a great major force when he went to Miami. And, that first year when he went to Miami with D-Wade, they fell short to the Detroit Pistons. I want to say it went 7 games in that Eastern Conference Finals. And Shaq vowed to come back the next season and get vengeance on Detroit. And that's exactly what he did. So when they faced Detroit the next year, even though Dwayne Wade was indeed the heroes of those finals, they would not have beat Detroit without Shaq, because Shaq had an outstanding series in which he pretty much dominated the entire Detroit front court and put up massive numbers like the Shaq of old, and was able to secure his 4th NBA title. He didn't get the Finals MVP because, of course, we all know that was D-Wade's, but Shaquille O'Neal was such a dominant force. I mean, when he first came into the league, nobody could stop him, and for several years, nobody could stop him. And all the battles that they had in the Western Conference with the Lakers and Kobe, we all know, against the Dallases and the Houstons and, Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady and, the Sacramento Kings. Very great teams. The San Antonio Spurs, of course, the battles they had with the Spurs en route to championships and also getting put out before they went on to that other finals in which they did lose to Detroit when they had Kobe. But at the end of the day, those were some great battles. I love the level of competition at the time because nobody really wants to see the same team win all the time. And, of course, Jordan fanatics say 6-0, 6-0. But there's a level of competition that comes into it when you're talking about matchups and who's being played in particular finals, you know. So at the end of the day, you know, I have Shaquille there. Shaquille could have been a lot higher had he stayed in shape. And I really hate that he kind of let his body go and didn't do the things he could have been capable of doing. Let's say Shaquille O'Neal had the motivation and the determination of a LeBron James. Then you would have been talking about somebody who was never going to be stopped. And Kobe was always on to him about that. You know, Kobe was real on to him about that. And speaking of Kobe, coming in at number 6, none other himself than the Black Mamba, Kobe Bean Bryant, who gave you 25, 5, and 5 for his career. And these averages would have been a lot higher as far as points per game if you didn't take into account those last 3 years. Those last 3 years of Kobe was really sad after the injuries and just not, the Lakers not really having a team. But, you know, it is what it is. That's how it was, and that's how he ended it. But, of course, everybody wants to say Shaq won those 3 finals MVPs, which he did, because in those finals, Shaquille was very important because of who they were matching up against. You know, when they were matching up against Indiana and he was going against Rick Smits and Dale and Antonio Davis, them Davis boys, you know, you needed Shaq. You understand what I'm saying? Of course, when they was going up against Portland and he's banging in the paint with Rasheed Wallace and everybody else, you understand what I'm saying? It was needed. But if you think about during the course of the playoffs, if it wasn't for Kobe, and like that game I just said about Portland, if Kobe didn't go ham in that game 7 against Portland, they were going to get put out, and that would have been Portland's championship to win in 2000, you know, with that Pippen team. But we all know Kobe threw the oop to Shaq, and the rest was history. So Kobe Bryant, like I said, 7th on my list, 5-time champion, 2-time final MVP, 4 MVPs, which is, you know, right under, you know, of course, Kareem with 6, LeBron with 4, Kobe with 4, and MJ with 5, of course. So, you know, he's tied for what, 2nd or 3rd as far as the most MVPs of all time in the NBA. What really separated Kobe, because I had Kobe and Bird real close, because I got a lot of respect for Larry Bird. And go back and watch the last video and listen to the stories and everything I told about Larry Bird. But what really separates those two is Kobe's tenacity on the defensive end of the floor, because Kobe gave you 12 all defensive selections. You understand what I'm saying? He was all, and a lot of people knock Kobe, and I did for a while for missing the most shots of all time, but he still has a respectable shooting average of, I want to say, 48 to 49%, 47, somewhere in there, which is respectable for taking as many shots as Kobe did, and he was never afraid to take that last shot. And of course, after Shaq left, they missed the playoffs. You know, they missed the playoffs, but that team was terrible. And of course, Shaq won the finals because it's all about teams. Shaq knew he formed a dynamic duo, and he went and played with a young D Wade. Kobe didn't have that luxury. But once the Lakers were able to go out and obtain Pau Gasol, I knew, because I was a huge Grizzly fan, being from the mighty West Tennessee area. You understand what I'm saying? I knew, you know, being a Grizzlies fan for a long time, I knew how great Pau Gasol was. I said instant championship. The day they traded, I was pissed off, really, because I was a Memphis fan. I'm like, why are we getting rid of our best player, who actually first time led Memphis to the playoffs, even though we got swept by San Antonio? Pau Gasol was a great player, and I knew once they teamed him with Kobe, it was over with. You put that with field triangle, and you saw what happened. That was 3 straight final appearances in a row, one in which they lost to Boston, then one in which they beat Orlando, and another in which they beat Boston. So that gave Kobe his 5 championships, so he won up Shaq. And just like he won up Shaq, he won up Shaq on my list right here too. So I know a lot of people are split between Kobe and Shaq, and I kind of didn't want to put him in that tie. But if I really had a choice to choose, I would take Kobe because of the discipline to play so long for 20 years. And if it wasn't for the injury to the Achilles, who knows what Kobe could have did. And on his way out, his last 2 or 3 years, Kobe could have left the Lakers and went somewhere else and tried to chase a few rings just to go out with more rings than Ty Jordan, but he chose not to. He stood on his own to stay with the Lakers organization, who had gave him the money and been good to them. Even though they gave him so much money, they couldn't sign other key players later in his career. But at the end of the day, man, you got to respect Kobe Bryant. And Kobe's last, I mean, as his body broke down, it was sad, because the last year that they was in the playoffs, I want to say 2012, when KD and Westbrook eliminated the Lakers, Kobe Bryant had a chance to actually win another scoring title, to get him an extra scoring title. He only needed 30-some points to beat Kevin Durant, but he sat out the last 7 games because he was trying to heal up his hand. And with that being said, by him healing up his hand, he wanted to be there for the playoffs. But ultimately, he met OKC in the playoffs, and they lost. And that was their last time. And we all know what happened to OKC once they met LeBron James. But that'll be something else because we haven't talked about LeBron James yet. So we're going to see where he falls on the list the next time. But I'm going to have to stop right there at number 6 in Kobe Bryant. I do look forward to getting back to you with the rest of the list. It's going to be very interesting because I know I'm probably going to upset some people with the people that I have in front of Kobe and Shaq. You understand what I'm saying? But you will see. So as always, man, this has been your boy B New. I'm saying right on to the real, and much love to y'all haters. I'm out.